Welcome to 2025 and the first SMC Journal podcast for this year. I'm Scott Moore, your host. Thanks so much for being with me. And today we're actually going to be talking about a topic called Agentic AI. Many people have heard of generative AI. You probably heard me talking about causal AI last year, but we really weren't able to define it very well. We're going to correct that today. Our guest is Scott Hebner. He's a principal research analyst for SiliconAngle, and you've probably seen him on theCUBE. I want to thank Datacamp for being our sponsor. We'll be talking about them a little bit later today, but let's get into this topic. What is agentic AI? Is it going to take over the world? Is it going to take over your job? How do we make sure that we can trust this new army of robots out there doing our bidding? What is it going to be good for? And is it more scary than it is cool? Let's get right into the interview today. Hey, Scott, welcome to the SMC Journal podcast today. It's great to have you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here, Scott.
I'm really excited to talk about this topic because a lot of the people who I talk to all the time, a lot of people who watch this show have been writing me saying, Scott, AI is just moving so fast. We first heard about generative AI. Now we're hearing about other types of AI, and we're a little confused about some of the terms. And when I started seeing all the posts about agentic AI, I said, we got to talk to somebody who knows what this is all about. So can you kind of introduce yourself and explain how you kind of got into this whole AI genre of technology, and then can you talk about the different kinds, what they are?
Absolutely. Yeah. So just quickly on me, I spent 30 plus years at IBM across product management, marketing, and strategic positions. Most recently, before I ended up leaving IBM, I was the chief marketing officer for our AI business. So think Watson X, our data fabric, our data business, plus all the Watson stuff. Since then I've joined Cube Research and SiliconAngle Media. So I'm the principal analyst for AI, and I'm spending a lot of time thinking about the next frontiers of AI. Where is this all heading? Which kind of leads right into your question, because if you kind of if you go back like 3 decades, there's been several major technological transformations. Right, you go back to the move to client server, and then to the internet, and then to cloud. Right, and I think there's some IoT stuff mixed in there. Right, and then now on to AI, and each one of these transformational cycles, the innovation cycles within them is speeding up. So yeah, 2 years ago, generative AI was the big thing. And I think we're now in 2025 going to see the rise of agentic AI, which is going to, take this to a whole new level. So if you sort of back up on your question, AI has been around for about 10 years or so, at least in the business world. It started off with predictive models that can help you, obviously make predictions, identify anomalies, patterns, things of that nature that help people make predictions. A couple years ago, 2.5 years ago, generative AI came on the scene. And think of that as being essentially AI assistants that are task based. So, what they're able to do is help you execute a task. You have explicit user prompt, it has known responses, and it can take in new information, not just based on what has happened in the past, and it helps you execute a task like generating code, reviewing a document, writing a better, letter, a bunch of different things that just think in terms of a task. As we move into the world of an AI agent, what changes is it now becomes about a, you know, think of it as being goal based. I want to accomplish a goal. The tasks are being automated past based on what has been achieved in the past. If you're asking the agent to help me achieve a goal, like I want to develop an application that does X, Y, and Z, or I want to figure out how I can, given all my parameters, health parameters, what do I need to do to become more healthy? Or how do I reduce improve customer retention? The AI agent then has to make some decisions. It has to plan. It has to actually problem solve. And that's the big difference. You're going from tasks to goals. You're going from information to actually taking actions. And if the agent is able to make decisions and can problem solve, then it can, actually autonomously take action without human intervention, right?
That could
The
get pretty
next,
complicated.
That
I,
can get pretty complicated, and we can talk about this, but today's generative AI technologies and large language models are insufficient to do that. So there's a whole, up and down the stack, there's going to be changes that are occurring in the marketplace as we speak.
well, I'm sure
The way
developers are wondering, how does that affect me? It sounds like it's going to take over what they do. Is that right? Or
No, actually, and Paul and I talked about this when we did our webcast on it. Is some people thinking that agents are going to replace humans. I'm not of that belief. I think it's going to give the developers superpowers. It's
hmm,
going to allow them to do things with better quality at a much faster speed, and it's going to allow them to focus on the things that are most important and differentiated in what they're trying to build. So I think it's going to be much more about that than replacing people, particularly when you get to agentic AI, which is the next stage beyond AI agents, where these, think of them as systems of agents that actually collaborate together to help, achieve organizational goals, to collaborate. Think about workflow automation, things of that nature. Where as a system, think of swarm intelligence, right? As a system, it does all the same things as an agent can do for an individual, but does it for an organization. So you're sort of on this roadmap of AI assistants that are task based, anchored in generative AI, to a new world of AI agents that are goal based in problem solve and make decisions and can take actions, onto the world of agentic AI, where you have multiple, potentially hundreds or thousands of agents that collaborate together to achieve more organizational goals.
I keep thinking about the word complexity, because if you're talking about all these agents interfacing with all these systems and tools, I mean, this is not your dad's RPA, right? This is something where they're going to have to constantly figure out how to seamlessly integrate and get over all these technical obstacles that we've had to put up with in the past. How are they going to do that?
Right. So this is where the changes up and down the stack come in. Think about how today's AI works. Let's generative AI. There's large language models, right? Large language models. Think of them as just massive statistical engines that know how to recognize patterns. They essentially process statistical probabilities by swimming in these unbelievably large lakes of data, right? And they're able from that to then help achieve some sort of task, right? Or to give you a prediction, identify anomalies, patterns, things of that nature. But it's based on the past, right? It's what has been learned from the past. With an agent, it kind of changes it a little bit, because now you're asking to achieve a goal. The goal is more in the present state or in the future state, right? So causal AI starts to get infused into this, where it's actually AI that understands cause and effect. When you infuse causality into it, it then starts to help you understand how those probabilities change when the world around you changes. So you're going to see LLMs being complemented architecturally. They're going to sort of be the underlying infrastructure, but you're going to have semantic reasoning through knowledge graphs. You're going to have causal AI through causal models, and you're going to have domain specific models, like for healthcare or for application development or for customer retention, that are going to understand the unique characteristics and language of your business and your data. Those three things are going to come together to complement the LLMs to give you the intelligence to actually have an agent operate. Second problem with today's LLMs and generative AI is hallucination, right? Some depends on what statistics and studies you look at, but anywhere from 3 to 10% of questions are answered inappropriately or wrong or have bias in them. And the reason why that happens is you can't understand or explain how the LM came up with its answer. It does not understand the precise path it took to determine an answer or a decision. And that again is where semantic reasoning and causal reasoning comes in, because they understand the exact path. They provide you AI explainability so you can trust it better, where an LLM can't really do that.
So you mentioned trust. So how are we going to make sure that we're continually getting better at this while making sure they don't do stuff they're not supposed to do? Because I can see two reactions to this technology. One is cool, the other is that's scary as crap.
That's why an AI agent has to come with explainability, right? It has to be able to explain the precise path to how it is recommending a particular action over other actions, right? And give you the data and the rationale behind it. Today's LLMs and generative AI are not really capable of doing that because they don't understand semantics, the knowledge. They don't understand how entities relate to each other in some kind of workflow or some kind of problem. That's what the knowledge graphs will give you. So how one entity relates to other entities. The causal AI then infuses cause and effect among those entities, right? And when you understand cause and effect, you're then able to understand the precise path that it is taking to make a decision. Because by definition, there's consequences. And therefore, you're going to want to understand as a user how it came up with those various decisions, given alternate decisions it couldn't have made. And again, that's why I think you're going to see people building AI agents, and then from there, they're going to quickly figure out that they have to build these other type of models in their architecture that are semantic based and that are cause and effect based. Otherwise, it's really not. It's just going to be a AI assistant with new clothes on, right? It's going to be task oriented.
Can we just take a brief peek behind the scenes of this, how this stuff is made? The tech stack's what I'm referring to. Like, is this just some great Python code with some libraries, a vector database, some langchain, and what's the recipe for building these agentic AI?
Yeah, I think the recipe starts with you want to have a generative AI engine under the covers. So you're going to have an LLM and a Gen AI system, and it could be one of these closed source ones like OpenAI. It could be Gemini. It could be a thought, but it could be any of these, right? Because that's going to give you the interactive capabilities and the tasks and the ability to pull in general knowledge. Step two is going to be to build domain specific models that understand a specific domain. And when you start thinking about that, that means it needs to be specific to your business. So I think you're going to see a shift from these general purpose, massive trillion parameter models to more compact models that understand a specific task or a specific domain and that is able to consume your data and the language of your business and the learnings of things that happen within your particular business. Those are really, really key. And then from there, you're going to complement that with knowledge graphs. So think of that as either a new type of model or an external interface into the domain models, right? And that's going to help you understand the relationships between the entities that make up a workflow or a problem set, right? It could be customer records versus customer purchases versus so on and so forth. That's going to give you the understanding of meaning between the entities and an understanding of how they relate to each other, right? Basically, the semantics of how things operate in your business. And then there will be complementary models to that for each of those entities and among the entities, how cause and effect operates, the mechanisms of cause and effect, right? So you're going to need to build out an ecosystem of these models, right? That are anchored off an LLM and generative AI. And then from there, it's exactly what you just said, is you're then going to use one of these agent building tools that allow you to tap into the right models at the right time. And there's also a learning loop where the causal learnings are then infused back into the generative AI model. And there's a thing called graph rec, right? And think of it as reinforcement learning based on graphs, reinforcement learning based on causality. And what you have is this continuous learning curve. And most importantly, I think, is when you have the explainability, the true deep explainability, it then's going to learn not only from human interaction and endorsement of the explanation of why it tried to do something, but it's also going to be able to learn from consequence, right? And so you have to architect the AI model ecosystem under the covers before you can start building the agents, if you want them to be able to make decisions and problem solve, right? And again, I think these are given human superpowers. I don't think it's going to be a long time before they truly operate autonomously, except for lower risk, goals that you're trying to But if it's a business critical kind of decision making process, it's going to augment the human being in ways that generative AI can't, versus going off and just doing everything on your behalf, right?
Being a performance engineer, of course, for that in my background, the first thing I think of is things like, can we build these agents that are constantly, like for an observability platform where we're monitoring all these parameters, trying to relate them back to the business, and now the environments are ephemeral with Kubernetes and things like that. There's so many moving parts to be able to send agents out there to constantly monitor every piece of it and then make sense of it and say, I can prevent you from having an outage an hour before it ever is going to happen based on the trends and things that I'm seeing. But I'm wondering if my thinking there is just way too small. Like what's the biggest game changer where you're seeing this being used in IT today or
Well, I
about to
think
be
you hit it.
used?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. I mean, the two areas. One is, let's call it the systems management, the observability platforms. I think you're seeing it starting to get infused into those environments, and I think actually app dev too, and a little bit in the security space. I think are the areas that at least I'm seeing it the most right now. So let's take observability. You're right. What a predictive model or a generative, LM based model can do for you is it can predict that there's going to be some sort of fault or problem in your system that's going to bring it down or create some kind of issue, right? But it's one thing to be able to predict that it's going to happen by identifying patterns and anomalies based on what's happened in the past, versus how do I actually fix it proactively, right? And so that quickly gets you to, okay, it looks like there's going to be some kind of fault or issue in the system. The next thing you're going to want to know is what is the root cause, right? Because you can't fix something autonomously or quickly unless you understand the root cause.
That's
The
right.
root cause, by definition, is cause and effect, right? And so this is starting to be used to understand cause and effect of a fault in the system. And once you understand the cause, you can almost immediately understand how to fix it, right? What the effect's going to be. And as these things mature, they'll actually have the ability to autonomously fix it, or at least alert a technician to say, here's what's happening, here's what the problem is. This goes back to the explainability. Here are the different ways or options we have in terms of how to fix it. And then the user can say, yes, this is the right one. You explained it to me. They push a button, it goes off and does it. Or they can actually have it where they trust the system and the agent will just go off and autonomously fix it and then tell you about it. Those kind of action oriented, fixes around root cause, I think is where the initial value of these agents is going to come in, right? Then as you get further down the road with the sophistication of these, then you're going to be able to intervene with them and do counterfactual reasoning. You're going to be able to do what if analysis, right? You're going to be able to actually interact with the model and jointly make decisions and problem solve because you can ask it questions, right? Again, this is all going to be enabled by the underlying evolution of the models under the covers.
If I'm in technology right now, let's say either I'm a developer or maybe I'm a software systems engineer, and I've been hearing this, and it's like that I feel like I'm getting behind. I need to catch up on this. How can people start preparing for this as their future and getting synced up with where AI is at? What's the quickest way to learn this? If you're watching this episode, and I know many of you are just going, wow, this stuff is advancing really fast in the area of technology in general, but specifically AI, as our topic is today. Some of you may be feeling a little bit left behind and you want to learn more about it. I believe in staying educated all the time, continuous education, and being ahead of the curve when it comes to technology. But AI is not something in the future. AI is now. And so it's important for you to learn about it if you don't already know at least the fundamentals. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about the sponsor of today's episode, Datacamp. Datacamp is an amazing online platform for learning all things data science related and AI. They have a specific track designated for people who want to understand how AI works and how to build real-world AI applications yourself. For example, check out this class on designing agentic systems with langchain. And here's some of the things I really like about it. It's hands on, so you're not just passively watching videos, you're actually coding, building projects from the get go. And that's the best way to learn, in my opinion. They cover all the essential tools. You'll learn how to use LLMs like ChatGPT or work with libraries like Hugging Face and LangChain, and you'll even dive into vector databases. It's a comprehensive curriculum for sure. The instructors are top notch. They're experienced AI engineers and the industry pros who know their stuff. They can break down complex concepts in a way that's very easy for you to understand. You can actually see the results of what you're learning. If you're a developer, a software engineer, or maybe you're just someone who wants to level up your skill set around AI, then check out Datacamp. Just use that URL to connect to them, let them know Scott Moore sent you, and have fun learning AI. Check out Datacamp today.
Yeah, well, I think step one is, and I think a large portion of the population is starting to move there, which is using these assistants in their dev cycle, whether it be for building the application code, whether it be for QA testing, all the different aspects across the life cycle. And there's a ton of those tools out there today that generate code, right? I consider them to be AI assistants, um, because what they're doing is they're executing a task, right? You ask it to create some code for this, you go through and review it, and what I've seen statistically is 30 to 50% of the code that's being developed today is being done through these AI assistants. The same's true for QA testing and all the different use case permutations and combinations and so on. So you want to get kind of embedded in that world. There are more and more agents that are coming on the marketplace today that take it to the next level, which is it helps the developers and the app dev team as an aggregate make better decisions, problem solve, and learn from what they have done in the past, right? And that's where you get into the agents. There's actually a company that I'm familiar with called Causal Lens, and they've come out with a agentic AI system for data scientists. And it's exactly what I said, is that you can ask it to help achieve a goal. It will help you create a plan for how to build your AI application, and then it will step you through all the different agents. It's a collection of like 30 or 40 different agents. And then you can create your own agents and you kind of build out from that core. And again, the difference between the agent and the assistant is the system is executing a task where the agents are going to help you plan, make better decisions, solve problems, and then learn through consequence what the best path forward is, right? And then I think you take that to the next step is where you have these agentic systems that are truly coordinating and planning across a team of developers, an organizational layer, right? But I think that's a little ways off. So I think for developers today, step one is to get into the world of these AI assistants that are generating code and automating portions of the life cycle, and then start to experiment with these agents that are helping you with decisions and problem solving. And if you go out there and do some Google searches or you contact me, there's a bunch of these different companies that are coming online with really good stuff, with great benchmarks.
You and the folks at SiliconAngle and the Cube, you're right in the middle of all this. You're talking about it, you're at conferences, and you're releasing research. And can you talk a little bit about what you guys have to offer in that way? Like if somebody wanted to follow up with you or your research, or I know we've got this AI Agent Builder Summit coming up. Can you talk a little bit about the stuff you do?
Yeah, actually, let's talk first about the summit. In the second quarter of 2025, this year, we're going to run one of our multi-vendor summits. We ran one back in July called Super Cloud 7. It had like 332,000 viewers. So they tend to get very well attended. This one's going to be on building AI agents, and it's going to feature a collection of the innovators and the pioneers out there that are delivering these new AI agents and agentic systems to give advice and counsel on how they're helping their customers build AI agents and agentic systems. And so it's going to be a summit that's going to have quite a few of these leaders talking about what their technology is doing, where this is all heading, the use cases, and the challenges that they're starting to address. So I think that would be a great event to either, if you're a vendor, participate in, or when it comes online later this year, to watch, because you're going to hear from real innovators and hear about real success stories on sort of how to build these agents. Because your comment up front was 100% right. People are trying to figure this all out. It's just like, we're just getting through Gen AI, and also now it's all about agentic AI, and everyone's predicting that to be the number one topic of the year for the world of AI. What is it? How's it different? How do I start building this stuff? Because it makes sense to me, right? We're putting out a ton of research on this, causality and AI agents, talking about the causal AI marketplace. I think the talent marketplace is going to be a big challenge for companies this year. There's already a 3 times gap in supply and demand for people trying to hire AI skills versus what's available. There's a bunch of different research topics that we're putting research out and doing it in partnership with real vendors and end users. There's one out there where Scanby and a company called How drove 10 times ROI in advertising tech by using causal AI.
Wow.
And it was all about trust and explainability, because you know if you're going to use predictive models to go off and send ads to people, you have to try to infuse trust in it. And the only way you get trust is by it explaining to you why it's targeting certain people. And they were able to drive literally 10 times ROI in the outcome of their advertising because of it. Right, those are the kind of things that we're going to start to really focus on, is not just the technology but the use cases and the ROI that real customers are getting from it.
I do think this year agentic AI is already the buzzword, that, and it's going to be taken to the next level. We'll just keep hearing more and more about it, and so we'll definitely make sure that we put links into your research and what you're doing over there at SiliconAngle. I follow it, and I'm going to recommend that my viewers do as well. This has been great. Thanks so much for being on the show. As we progress through this year and we learn more about this, I'm probably going to be hitting you up to come back and give us an update, because I think we're going to hear about some game changers throughout this year.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a year of transformation once again.
Well, thanks again, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
You bet. Thank you, Scott.
So it's going to be a very interesting year. We saw last year generative AI come into its own. We saw a lot of startups coming up out and being able to go to text to image, text to video. That stuff, it seems like every day there's a new update on that. Now with agentic AI, people creating agents to do this and understanding the context. I think this is definitely going to change the IT landscape. And then from my perspective, I mean, how do we keep the quality high? How do we test that? How does it tick in the background? We're going to be learning more and more about that as we go through this year, and I'm sure we're going to have more shows on it. If you would be so kind as to like this video, if you like it, and subscribe to my channel, that would really help me make sure that I am doing the right thing. You can sign up by either scanning that QR code, or just, if you're watching through YouTube, just subscribe through YouTube today. And you can give me feedback on what you want to see this year in 2025. I'm very easy to get a hold of. If you scan that QR code, or you go to one of those websites, LinkedIn, Twitter, X, Instagram, and many others, Facebook, you can find me. You can also send me an email at heyscott@smcjournal.com. You can follow me online. You can see what all I'm up to. And don't forget to sign up for my mailing list, which you can see in the description of this video. My mailing list is really cool because some people just can't keep up with all the stuff I'm doing. I mean, I have like 3 or 4 different shows, right? And new information is coming out all the time. So if you want to be part of that, just sign up for the mailing list, and you'll be in the know. And it comes out every single month, and you can win some really cool prizes and cool swag that we give away every month as well. So for 2025, I think this was a pretty cool show. Thanks again to Datacamp for sponsoring the show, and we'll see you on the next SMC Journal. Bye bye.